All right. Hey there, and welcome to this episode where we're going to discuss resisting intrusive thoughts. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And before we dive into the video or the episode, I want to just ask if you could please show your support for our show by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a comment, and also maybe going as far as leaving a review on iTunes, as it helps the algorithm of the show and helps us get this information to people that need it. Yeah, so with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. This is the Monday right after the Super Bowl. I hope you, for those of you that watch the Super Bowl, hope you enjoyed it. And for those of you that, hate watching sports, then, or, football, then I'm, probably just glad that football season's over. So either way, just wanted to say that real quick. So when it comes to intrusive thoughts, right, this is a very common symptom of anxiety and OCD. And even then, what we're really talking about is just the stress spectrum in the body. So psychological stress. And so they can manifest all sorts of ways. And really what we're talking about here is you're feeling this bombardment, and these thoughts are kind of automatically popping into your awareness. And they're very, disturbing, right? They're intrusive. They're not thoughts you want. They're not thoughts that align with your desired experience, what you want for your life, all of that. Right. And so you're able, and there are thoughts of what we would call ego dystonic, meaning even on the lowest level of consciousness, being the ego, you still recognize that doesn't align with your self-concept. And so when we're talking about dealing with intrusive thoughts and overcoming intrusive thoughts, the very first thing that I don't think anyone talks about, but I think it's just so important that you understand, is the very first thing we need to address with intrusive thoughts is not the thoughts themselves, not even the anxiety. It's our just general resistance. So again, you can always remember the phrase, right? And I've talked about it again and again: what you resist persists. And when you are resisting something, you are essentially fighting with reality. And when you fight with reality, you're going to lose. For most of you, if you've experienced intrusive thoughts for any length of time, chances are you've tried to fight them. And the overwhelming odds are that you haven't been successful. Because if you had, you wouldn't be listening to this episode, right? Or seeking help. Because if resisting and fighting them off was an effective strategy, then it would work, and it doesn't. And one of the problems is that this underlying resistance, if you operate from that place, it's very difficult to be successful on this journey. And very, very few people talk about this idea. So I thought it was important just to address this one aspect in this episode of resistance. And what do I mean by that? So let's define it, right? And resistance is this unwillingness to the experience, right? Like unwilling to coexist with this experience. And for many of you, you're like, yeah, of course, I don't want these thoughts, right? And I get it. I really do. I understand this on a very personal level. But when you are unwilling to be in the presence of the thoughts and unwilling to acknowledge their presence or any of that, however disturbing the thoughts might be, the issue is then the thoughts take power over your life, and your whole life becomes about not having them or controlling them or fighting them off. And then as that happens, your life becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. This is really the issue that we're talking about with OCD and anxiety. Most people, when they are trying to describe their experience with OCD and anxiety, what they often say is, hey, I want to get rid of the thoughts and feelings. But what someone would measure, right? Like if you were working with me or you worked with someone else, and you're completing like an assessment tool, what the assessment generally measures is how much time you spend attempting to, and how much time you spend engaging in behaviors that are going to fight off or get rid of or remove or eliminate the thoughts and feelings that you don't like. And this all predicates, I mean, which really is like all stands upon this idea of resistance. So what most people do is they learn about skills. And what they think is, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put more effort into these skills, and so I can fight them off even harder. And they use the skills from a place of resistance. This is like the biggest hurdle right here to get someone to understand in their journey is you cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness which it was created. And what that means, right? And that's an Albert Einstein quote. And what that means is you cannot use the tools that you're being taught, like ERP, the AAA response, right? Or whatever tool you're trying to use from the level of I'm resisting this and I'm going to solve this, right? So many people treat the intrusive thought problem with like a whack-a-mole mentality. Like, oh, I'm just going to will my way through this. I'm going to fight off everyone. In fact, I'm going to work so hard that I'm going to eliminate all of them. And it doesn't work. That doesn't work. Okay. Be very transparent. The paradox here is the more effort you put into this, the more likely it's not going to work. I know, like I always say, everything with this is like a huge grand paradox. The more effort you're putting into trying to recover, quote unquote, and usually that word recover usually means is predicated in resistance too. So it's like, I need to recover, meaning I need to eliminate all my thoughts and feelings. And that resistance, which then, and that resistance, then everyone builds upon, right? The resistance there. This is the main hurdle, in my opinion, that most people have is this underlying resistance to everything. And then trying to use the tools to, I don't know the word that I'm looking for right now, but use the tools to, essentially achieve what their resistance wants them to achieve. Instead of, right? I mean, if we're really talking about what something like ERP is, or exposure and response prevention is, we're talking about the exposure to the event or the thing that you don't like, in this case, the intrusive thoughts. And then the response prevention, meaning I'm not going to engage in the safety behaviors that I do to eliminate or get rid of the intrusive thoughts. Right. And so essentially what we're doing is we're dropping our resistance to them, because all the behaviors we do are evidence of resistance. So that's the issue, right there, is that there's this underlying resistance. And the very first thing that I think, I mean, it's absolutely necessary, right? And even when you, like, one of the things I like about the book Letting Go with Dr. Hawkins, who is just brilliant, is he says, when we're talking about even dealing with emotion, the very first thing we need to let go of is our resistance to the emotion before we even deal with the emotion itself. And again, probably in the next episode here, I'm going to talk more about emotion and the idea of resisting emotion. But if you try to fight with reality, and the reality is that you're being bombarded with intrusive thoughts, if that's what you're experiencing, that's going to create immense tension and conflict in the present, in your body and in your life, most likely. And it's going to be very chaotic. And you perceive, most of the misperception that we usually anchor into is that the thoughts are causing this discord, when really it's our resistance to the thoughts that are really causing all that discord and chaos as a very first step. This is why changing our first step of dropping our resistance is foundational, because then we start putting the tools in from a different level of consciousness. And, in my book that I just finished, From Stuck to Unstuck, that idea, right, of we need to apply these tools from a different level of consciousness is everything to be successful in this journey. So when we're talking about intrusive thoughts, instead of perceiving and you being so convinced, Because again, if you're convinced that that's the issue and you're just like, this is what the issue is and I need to solve this, that's what you're going to pursue to solve. And my bet would be is that if you haven't had success doing that thus far, you're not going to have success doing it in the future with the tactics you're using and the, more importantly, like the consciousness that you're applying to this. So if you want to actually move towards a healthier internal environment, meaning a more balanced, emotional system and mind, the first thing that needs to happen is actually a drop or a letting go of your resistance to the thoughts. Because if you let go of that resistance, then we can actually start applying the tools from a higher level. And I think in my experience, you'll be much more successful, especially with the AAA response. And I just know this to be true from personal experience, as well as just working with so many people over the years, that it's just like this one aspect of, if you are resisting intrusive thoughts and you're trying to build everything around that resistance, you're building a house on sand, right? Like there's no stability, no foundation to this. And in my opinion, it's not going to be successful long-term, because the moment you finally feel like you've conquered a certain intrusive thought, then 3 more come in that are in different themes. And then all of a sudden we're in the same spiral again. Yes, we need to eliminate all safety behaviors, right? Yes, of course. We're not even going to talk about that today, right? The main focus and the main thing I really want you to sit with from this episode is the idea of really starting to identify, acknowledge, and let go of your resistance to the thoughts before you do anything else. And again, in understanding that the thoughts are not you, right? Like intrusive thoughts, especially when they're happening automatically, they're not you, right? You are the awareness of the thoughts. You hear the thoughts. They're not you. That subject-object awareness is so important to understand. And again, we talk more about that if you're interested in that in the 2-day workshop and 2-day intensive workshop. And there's a little link down in the notes where you can get access to that. And really start to understand that concept. So anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about today. And I think next week we're going to talk more about the idea of resisting, uncomfortable feelings. But most people, especially when we're talking about the OCD wheel, they generally get caught with an initial experience of intrusive thoughts or some type of racing what if thought, and understanding that when you resist, what you resist persists. So your resistance to it, if it is persisting, there's resistance. And like that's such a important staple to first, instead of trying to control the thought, instead of trying to control the feeling, let me start working on letting go of my resistance to this, and letting go of trying to fight with what is currently happening, instead of and then learning to actually move into more of a acceptance of like, okay, this is actually what's happening. These thoughts are happening, they're present. But again, it's not a reflection of you. It doesn't mean you need to do anything with them. Doesn't mean you need to follow them. Doesn't reflect anything else other than their intrusive thoughts, right? Like in my experience, there's not this deeper meaning there that you need to go pursue and figure out or any of that. But we have to stop resisting their initial presence to be able to start doing the right things, like putting the AAA response into practice. So hope this was helpful. And again, appreciate your support by liking, subscribing, leaving a comment and review. And if you have any questions that you would like me to answer on the show, we're starting a new frequently asked questions segment. And there's a little link down in the notes as well where you can submit questions. And then every week I answer a question just to give you the ability to be able to submit questions that I know that you guys have, so that I can try to put helpful information out. Also, again, my new book is coming out. Should be available by the end of this week, maybe next week. So if you head over to restoredminds.com, we'll have a link on the homepage for it, as well as there'll probably be a link in this episode as well. And then if you're interested in coaching or getting guidance and really working with me on a deeper level here, right? And really, getting some direct guidance from myself and my coaching team, then from there, if you're interested, please check out restoredminds.com/apply, where you can fill out an application for our TBC program. And you can learn more on the site about TBC as well. It's a 12-week intensive program, and really walk you through everything, regarding the AAA response, beliefs, exposure, all that stuff. So anyways, with that being said, next week we'll pick up with resistance of feelings. And then from there, I think we're going to keep going on this idea of resistance, because it's just so critical to understand. And when you really get it, it can be transformational in your recovery. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great week. Talk to you soon. Hey there, hope you enjoyed that recent video. We really would appreciate your support real quick if you could like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for help with